happens, just remember the basics. Jesus came. He died for your sin. You've accepted him. You are saved. You are his child. He is living, and one day he's coming back for you. And it doesn't matter what else happens on this earth. It doesn't matter if it's what you thought it was going to be or it's not. Those things are true, and if you hold on to them, you will be okay in the end. We try to make this thing sometimes way complicated and way hard, and sometimes we got to pull it on back and just say, I'm going to have this audacious faith in the basic gospel message because it is true and it is life-giving and it is saving and it never changes no matter what is going on. Amen? Amen. It is the consistent way of life believing that what God said is true, followed by the action of doing what he says. Ooh, that doing. You're like, Staci, you were doing some good preaching till then. The doing is always the hard part. The doing is always the hard part. But it's the most rewarding. It's the most rewarding. Amen. And then audacious faith keeps God's kingdom in sight. It's kingdom-minded. We have to remember that this is our temporary home. Amen. God's put us here for a reason and for a purpose, but it is not our forever. It is not our forever. We have a very limited time to do what he has asked us to do. Very limited time. When I think about that, then I sometimes have to say, God, forgive me for the times I have delayed, the opportunities I have missed. I have some that the Lord has finally helped heal me, but they kept me up many nights. Many nights, where I was like, ooh, I see that opportunity now, but in the moment, I was too busy. In med school, there was a time, and we would go as med students, and we'd have our certain set of like 3 or 4 patients, and we'd have to go see them and round on them and do our notes, and then you'd go to what they called rounds with your attending, or first you would talk to your resident, then you'd go to your rounds and you'd talk to your attending, and sometimes they grill you, and you have to know every little detail. Every little lab, anything they wanted to know, you better come up with it. So there's a lot of pressure. So I walk in, and this nurse and this gentleman, they're having a spiritual conversation. And and the nurse gets up and leaves, and I kind of felt, I was probably like 20, so I was young, but I felt a little something in my spirit that was like, you could pick up this conversation and share about Jesus, but I was got to get to rounds, right? So I said to the Lord, well, let me do this, and I will come back this afternoon after rounds are done. So we did our rounds, and then right about noon when we're getting done, when you know it, he has a code blue. He's in the ICU. He's on a ventilator. I'd like to tell you he came back, and I was able to talk to him, but he didn't. He passed. Now, I choose to believe that, I don't know what that nurse said. I don't know what was in that conversation. So I choose to believe that the Lord still sent somebody to speak to that man. But I was not obedient in that moment. I said later. I'll just do it later. But later was too late. Later was too late. So audacious faith means keeping our kingdom-minded, even at our job. What is really important? Was it really important that I knew all those numbers? Not in the sight of eternity. Maybe to my attending doctor, but in the sight of eternity, there was something way more important. So when those opportunities come, we have to take them. That takes audacious faith. It takes audacious faith. So audacious faith, I know some of us think of these bold people standing on the street corners, doing whatever, or in stadiums just proclaiming the name of the Lord, and that is true. But audacious faith can be very quiet. It's very humble. But it's always, always loving. Audacious faith takes so much love. That's what Christ was, right? Love. It's loving someone else enough that I will put myself aside to speak to their need because God's telling me to. Joseph could have very easily, and rightfully so, just left Mary to her own mess. But he had a love of God that led him to do what God told him to. In the quiet dream, right? Did it all quietly. So sometimes it's loud and bold, but sometimes it's very quiet. So if you're a quiet person, don't think that you do not have audacious faith. You can. And be kingdom-minded. Our eternal home of heaven awaits us. And so I'm going to end here with 2 Timothy 4. This is a letter from Paul. He's coming to the end of his life. And Timothy is he's been a mentor to Timothy. He's a young man. And so he says, as for me, my life has already been poured out as an offering to God. The time of my death is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. There's many versions that say, I have kept the faith. And now the prize awaits me, the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on the day of his return. And the prize is not just for me, amen, but for all who eagerly look forward to his appearing. Day and night, night and day.